Good Wednesday afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Kare 11 News Now. I'm Rena Sargentopoulos. President Trump announced that he is extending the ceasefire with Iran. But as the U.S. naval blockade of Iran's ports continues, the future of peace talks remains unclear. And now a potential new escalation is raising those stakes. NBC's Keir Simmons has the latest.
Well, there are multiple fast-moving developments right now, just hours after President Trump announced that he would delay the end of his ceasefire indefinitely. The Iranians targeting ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Right now, multiple ships have been targeted, according to reports. 2 ships seized by Iran, according to Iranian state media. A 3rd ship targeted with gunfire. President Trump has been aiming to try to force the Iranians back to the negotiating table here in Islamabad. However, today it looks like the battle to exert control over the Strait of Hormuz has intensified. That after Vice President Vance had to put on hold his trip here to the Pakistani capital because the Iranians said they simply would not come to negotiate. The Iranians again today demanding that President Trump lift the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz before they are prepared to talk. Vice President Vance going to the White House to talk with President Trump before he announced that delay in the ceasefire, but that also his blockade would be indefinite. So for now, it looks like a difficult position where both sides are unable to compromise, something like a stalemate. Keir Simmons, NBC News, Islamabad, Pakistan.
New today, the Minneapolis City Auditor releasing its report on 2 high-profile cases, the death of Allison Lucier and the shooting of Davis Muturi. In the summary, auditors found the MPD had a delayed response to the cases because of caseload and staffing shortages. They also say officers didn't understand key domestic violence laws impacting arrest decisions. Other issues reported include inconsistent record keeping and poor communications between the MPD and the Attorney's Office. Auditors did mention the police department started making changes toward improvement during the audit. New today, influencer Lee Genquest can go back to recording content in St. Paul. The social media personality pretends to be homeless and then financially helps those who show him kindness. His videos do get millions of views online. St. Paul had banned him from filming content like that in their parks, saying he was putting vulnerable people at risk. Lil Genquest says that his team always asks permission before posting someone's story. Right now, Minneapolis renters can apply for their share of nearly $2 million in rental assistance. The City Council approved the emergency money in response to Operation Metro Surge. Beyond living in the city, applicants do have to meet certain income thresholds and have to have received an eviction notice. Applications are open through a handful of community organizations, and that full list is on the city's website. Today at the state capitol, senators are discussing a major bill aimed at cracking down on Medicaid fraud. The bill seeks to strengthen the Medicaid fraud control unit within the Attorney General's office, but its fate is still uncertain. If passed, the bill would grow the Medicaid fraud control unit staff from 32 to 50. It would also expand the Attorney General's subpoena power and increase criminal penalties for fraud. The legislation has already passed several House and Senate committees, but it has hit a snag in the tied House, where Democrats think the AG's office should get ongoing funding, while Republicans think it should be a one-time funding deal because they say they don't trust Attorney General Keith Ellison. Nearly a year after the lawmaker shootings, new documents reveal a time gap during the police response. A third-party after-action report is being prepared right now to investigate and evaluate the law enforcement response to the assassinations. Lou Ragoose dug through those records.
Page after page of timestamps logging the police response to the non-fatal shootings of Senator John Hoffman's family and the assassination of Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark. These documents help build a timeline of the response and raise questions that Brooklyn Park Police Chief Mark Bruley has begun to answer. 3:36 a.m., 1 hour and 30 minutes after the 911 call from Hope Hoffman reporting her parents were shot in Champlin by a man impersonating police, Brooklyn Park police officers outside the Hortman home witnessed the gunman, believed to be Vance Belter, shooting Mark Hortman. Chief Bruley has said the officers were proactively checking on Melissa.
He's like, I just thought to myself, like, we should just drive by her house.
And yesterday on WCCO radio, Bruley said that's who they initially thought they saw killed.
They immediately start approaching the house and realize that there's a downed person at the door. From the body-worn camera and from the interviews, they believed it was Melissa.
Bruley said the officers realized the victim was Mark after they pulled him from the house to start CPR. And at that point, Bruley said police didn't realize anyone else was shot because there was no more gunfire. They thought the gunman might still be inside, so they slowed down and waited to deploy a drone. The log says 31 minutes after the gunfire, the drone was up, and at 4:10 a.m., it spotted the body of Melissa and their dog. On Drive Time with DeRusha, Bruley answered the question why the officers didn't run into the house after Belter.
One of the things that officers always have to balance, once they got additional officers that arrived on scene, now they have to make the determination, are we going to make entry in this house?
Sure.
But one thing about when we make entry, we go to shooting calls all the time. We just don't make entry because there was a shots fired. Our presence can actually incite somebody. For example, what if Melissa was in there being held hostage, and now we just come bum rushing in there, and now her life is in jeopardy because of our actions?
Brooklyn Park Police Chief Mark Bruley defends his officer's decision not to enter the Hortman home after witnessing Mark Hortman being killed. Lou spoke with other law enforcement sources who disagree. The after-action report will address those kinds of questions. There is no expected release date yet. Also at the Capitol, Senate lawmakers heard testimony from city leaders as they consider a bill that would help reimburse communities for extra costs associated with Operation Metro Surge. Those expenses include police overtime, emergency communications, and staff response. The bill would create a one-time reimbursement for cities and would require the state auditor to verify the extra costs. Well, for the first time, Governor Tim Walz is speaking out about the financial struggles that are plaguing HCMC, as time, of course, is running out for lawmakers to find a way to fund the hospital. Jennifer Hoff has where things stand right now.
The Hennepin County Medical Center is a Minneapolis institution.
Every day.
Where nurse Jeremy Olson-Ellert has worked for 13 years, and yet the hospital's financial crisis is unlike anything he's ever seen. It's now at risk of closing.
Everyone, no matter who you are, no matter where you live, everyone deserves health care.
The Safety Net Hospital, mostly funded by Medicaid reimbursements, except the federal program faces sweeping cuts next year. And HCMC expects to lose nearly $2 billion in the next decade as uncompensated care also goes up.
Good morning. It's 10:15-ish.
Lawmakers now tasked with finding a funding solution, including increasing the county sales tax by 1%. The proposal getting mixed reviews.
I do think that's something that is outside the budget that we have right now, that I am certainly willing that we need to bring that back in.
The nation's largest nurses union says more than 600 hospitals are in a similar situation, placing them on a red alert, rallying recently outside some of them in California, calling any closure a drastic impact. Other hospital CEOs telling me they can't absorb any more patients as pressure mounts to save HCMC with no clear backup plan.
I'm hoping that the legislators will really sit down and take a better look at what can we do to make sure we don't lose this great facility.
The hospital has a new CEO who says he is also leaning on lawmakers to come up with a plan. However, the session ends in less than a month, and any details about where the tax bill may land are still being worked out. The nurses plan to make their voices heard at a rally at HCMC next week. Well, that summer trip you have coming up may cost you a little more if you don't already have your plane tickets booked. United Airlines says it is raising ticket prices by as much as 20% this summer. CEO Scott Kirby says demand has stayed strong, which means flyers are willing to pay that price. He also said that jet fuel costs are up right now, and the airline needs to pass some of that expense on to customers. New today, Best Buy CEO Kare Berry is stepping down. She will be replaced by Jason Bonfig in late October, who's a 27-year company veteran. Berry has been CEO since 2019 and will stay on as a strategic advisor for the next 6 months. The leadership change comes as the company tries to get back to meaningful growth, they say, and capitalize on AI. Summer is just around the corner, which means the return of mosquitoes. And starting today, helicopter treatments begin across the Twin Cities, of course, to help mitigate those pests. The Metropolitan Mosquito Control District will first treat the wetlands in all 7 counties where larvae have been found during their field surveillance. The list of cities getting treatments will be updated at 8 a.m. every morning on Mosquito Control's website. Stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.